So does weight matter in Fire Emblem? So first of all, what is weight? Weight is a property of weapons that usually just reduces speed. So it doesn't really benefit you ever. It only serves as a thing that can be like a problem. It's never like something that's like, oh wow, I'm so glad this weapon had more weight. It never like mechanically helps you. It only serves to make you slower. And that's fine, because the idea behind it is it's supposed to reduce a unit's ability to double, right? So units that can double, you know, with heavy weapons have a distinct advantage over units that cannot. So it's a new way of interacting. It's a way like to balance weapons, at least that's the intention, to balance heavy weapons and the units who can use them in relation to units with low build / con, and restrict the speedy units' access to weapons. But what is it like in reality? Because this is something I've run into across all the Fire Emblem games. What does weight actually typically do? Does it actually restrict access to weapons, or does it just take units who already kind of are trash and just make them worse? The weight also affects the enemy. It does, but the developers put the speed stats on the enemies in the game. So like if I'm designing a level and I give this dude a silver sword that does not, let's look at his stats. All right, so this enemy has 11 build. I give him a silver sword, great. I think silver sword is 11 weight, so it doesn't slow him down, cool. So I set his speed stat. I give him 29 speed. Let's say I wanted to make him slower. I could give him a weapon with more weight, or I could just make a slower version of this thing. So it's not that they can't have slower enemies. Like it's the same. It's basically the same thing. All right. So most Fire Emblem games, there are units with high stats that blow the units out of the water. This is true. So like of most games, there's usually units that also have like average build and then high speed, and then those are like the best units in most games. Like literally Kagetsu and Pandreo. Those are like the high speed, high like medium build units. But then the high build units always tend to be like slow, and then there's like no distinct advantage really of having the high build. It's just like there almost as like a meme where it's like, oh, I have high build. And it's like, all right, but does that help you in combat? It's like, well, I'm too slow to double, and I'm so slow that I get doubled anyways. So if I have 10 speed and I have a 17 weight weapon and I have 17 con and this enemy has 20 speed, it literally doesn't make any difference at all. And that's what I noticed in like the GBA era games when I was doing like the chat sabotage, where it's just like, what is the point of having build if I'm so slow? Like, it doesn't help you. It would be one thing if like build boosted damage or something interesting. Maybe if like you met the weight requirements, it like boosts your damage by your build amount or like some value. That would be different. But like it basically almost does nothing. And then units that are like lower con but higher speed usually can still double with those weapons anyways. So you have this like weird catch-22 where the build that's supposed to help the slower units does nothing, but then so they're not even like, they're benefiting in no way from high build, and then the units that are faster than them, even with lower con, still benefit. So like the low speed units are just getting like completely destroyed in like every situation. Weight system would have been better if it affected enemies in the mid and end game. Speed is considered one of the best stats in the series. They probably wanted to create something that makes it not that great. I mean, that's fine. Like smash weapons, I think, are the way to do it, because like once you have these like fast units that always double, no matter what they're using, basically, you need something to restrict them if the weapon's might is too high. I think build is far more interesting on a fast unit with low build.
I think we can work very well.
Yeah, it would be different if it mattered, right? But like in the actual implementation, it's like it almost never matters. It's like, oh no, my build is 7 and this weapon has a weight of 11, but I'm plus 10 speed versus other units, or plus 15 speed versus other units, so I'm still functionally way faster than they could ever dream of being. So then it's almost just like a meme, which was like the premise of like this idea, right? Like this topic. Because like I've noticed weight almost never matters, and the only times it does are like fringe use cases, because usually the best weapons in the game tend to be like average weight anyways. So it's almost like they need to have more high weight weapons that actually matter, and units with average speed and high build, and then units with high speed and low build, so they can't make use of those weapons. You can keep their high speed with light weapons, take the attack speed penalty if it allows you to still double, give more damage. Yeah, then you can basically just pick and choose. It's like, okay, I don't double this guy with the heavy weapon, so I'll switch to a lighter one and still 1 round in most cases, which is kind of usually how it plays out, where it's like you just pick and choose who gets what, when,
I'll go first.
and play around, you know, to the break point of doubling, like if you get to the threshold or not. That's just what I've noticed. So it's just kind of funny to me that it's like still in the game. Like honestly, I think they could just completely remove build and weight from weapons and just have it be speed based, and then just add limitations on weapons. So like great weapons do not double, like they cannot follow up. Like you could just do things like that. You could just have like strength requirements, like you need 25 plus strength to wield this weapon. That like you can still have limitations on weapons, but I think it should be done in a more logical way instead of like this weird system that basically revolves around stats. And by that I mean like
Allow me.
it has nothing to do with like the identity of the unit and everything to do with the stats of the unit, if that makes sense. So it's not like Etier is the perfect example. She should be like average speed, which she basically is, and then like high build, but she is not high build. Isn't that just weapon rank again? In a way. Actually, why would they have weapon rank and weight and con? I feel like that's redundant. Well, weapon rank would be different because certain characters would never be able to meet the thresholds of getting these stats. What's the difference between that and weapon rank? So stat based, one, I believe in hard caps. I think caps should matter more. So I feel like they should have caps on certain characters, and especially on certain classes. Like in this game, caps are kind of like a meme, where it like almost doesn't even matter, like what class you're running or what unit you're running. Like you're almost never going to reasonably hit stat caps in maddening mode in this game, and if you do, you're either grinding or running DLC or something crazy. But I think stat cap should matter, and then you like if you're gonna have like super powerful weapons with limitations, I think there should be some kind of system that's logical, where it's like, oh, you're a thief and you can use swords and daggers, for example. Like let's say as a thief class, you use swords and daggers. Your strength caps at 20, and like certain crazy swords require, you know, certain strength level, but then certain crazy daggers could require a high speed level that other units just can't get access to. So then you have trade-offs to running different class units, which I think would be interesting, because currently it's just kind of like generic, where it's like, what's the difference between a warrior and a berserker? Berserker is trash, and warrior does everything berserker does, but it also has access to bows. It can run longbow and get 2 range chain attacks. It has better stats, better growths, better like max cap stats, and it has a better passive. That is already a thing in FE12. I mean, that's good. That's cool. But I didn't play FE12. I didn't play FE12, but that's not the system we have right now, though, right? Should the capture mechanic come back? I have no idea. Here, let's just pass here. All right, so speed fixing is something. Oh yeah, the other thing too, speed fixing changes everything. This is why I wanted to talk about this. Speed fixing. So in a world where weight matters. So like GBA era and like some of these older era games where you can't just like be like, here, you're +5 speed now. You would have a unit with like certain build, certain weight, or certain build, certain speed, and they would have to play to their strengths of, you know, their build and speed and what weapons they want to go for and whatever, and there are more hard limitations. But now you can just be like, oh, this weapon weighs you down? This Levin sword is so heavy for you, Fram? On Mage Knight, here's +5 speed passive, and it's like, oh, cool. It's like now it doesn't do anything. It doesn't weigh you down at all. So there's also things like that where you can just completely fix these stats now. So it kind of makes it matter even less. So I kind of feel like in future games, they might as well just remove it. Because like, look at how many stats we're looking at here. Like we have speed, attack, hit, avoid, defensive. Like these are logical stats for combat. But then if we actually go into like the character menu, we still have dex, which is fine, I guess. I think my controller's drifting. That's always fun. We have defense, res, luck. I feel like luck is just kind of like... I feel like luck doesn't need to be in the game. And I also feel like build and weight don't need to be in the game. I don't think they really add anything. Like, there's still a way to limit weapon use and like who can use what. That's not like some random stat that should never matter, to be honest. Like, it almost never matters. Like, how often are you building a unit or some kind of build in this game and you're like, oh my god, the build of this weapon is too high. And also you can like weight fix weapons now with engravings. So like, so little of like the core game mechanics matter when you can just like flip a switch and turn them off. It's like, oh, the build is too high on this weapon, -2 weight from lid engraving. Or I'm sorry, the weight on this weapon is too high. Like, you can weight fix, you can speed fix. You can't really build fix in this game aside from passive. Like, build fixing and speed fixing are the same thing. So I feel like right now in Engage, build and weight are redundant stats. They could also just do speed modifiers. Oh, this weapon's heavy, -2 speed. About Fram, Anna, and Jean, would only recommend train one of them, do their low level. Would you only recommend to train one? Yeah, I mean, Fram trains herself for free. I've done a ton of runs with Anna and Fram. And that's pretty easy to get online. Jean I always find to be a pain to get online. I find that he's like hard to level up, so I usually avoid running him. There's also this idea of side grades when it comes to like weapons. So like, let's say for example you have like steel versus silver dagger. The main advantage of steel versus silver is that steel gets +10 crit, which does matter for crit builds. Because daggers, aside from the melee crit daggers, have a hard time critting, and also getting silver beyond +3 is very expensive. But obviously it has higher base damage by 2, I believe. It's either 2 or 3. So there's like trade-offs there. It's like you're getting a little bit of crit, I think a little bit more hit, it might be similar hit, but a little bit more crit, slightly less damage, cheaper upgrade to +5, and then silver you can't like max it out, which could push it beyond steel. So this game actually did a kind of good job with like side grades, because in like previous games it's just like silver sword is just better than steel sword, which is just better than iron, and sometimes you should use like iron because you can one round with it and it's cheap, and then you get like legendary weapons. So there's kind of trade-offs, but like in the GBA era, like clearly if you need the extra damage you should go up in a tier, and that can be fine. Because like the main limiting factor is like there's a finite amount of these weapons, they have lower durability, you're near the end of the game anyways, so it's like limited in some way. But in the case of like comparing weapons, I feel like weight is almost never an issue for most characters, unless you're trying to run like a bad weapon for them, essentially. Like if you wanted to run like Silver Lance on some low con units, or low build units, it's not gonna be fun. Like, I mean, it'll reduce your speed and you can speed your build fix it away, but you're usually better off just running like Fencelar or Steel. But with basic game knowledge, you'd be like, oh, I already know that, and then you just do that. So yeah, I just want to talk about weight. I feel like it could be an interesting system if it mattered more, but because there's like speed fixing now, I think it matters like the least it ever has. And it was more of a thing in like older school Fire Emblem games, like old school games, where you couldn't just like completely fix every issue a unit had. Okay. Or at least most of them. In Three Houses, some units are hard to fix because that game's a completely different thing, but only in Radiant Dawn. Tellius mages have horrible unit feel. Certain ones do, yeah, in some of the games when they don't double in like one-round armors and stuff like that. That feels kind of dumb. And then they get one-rounded by everything in the game, which is really strange. That's quite funny. So what else? In the case of using weight to prevent units from popping off, argue for different systems. Okay. Oh yeah, and then finally, do you enjoy weight and build as a mechanic in Fire Emblem? I'm curious what you guys think in chat. Do you actually like the weight system? Do you think it adds something like compelling or interesting to the game? What can you do? Hey, you're gonna die. Don't do that. Here, you hop back here. Just wait. Get it? Brutal. Brutal. Alright, you get it. Look at that. 33. Because she has holdout. I'm probably gonna leverage holdout. People like to make fun of Isadora in FE7 for her 6 con, but her actual issue is her HP. She used Body Ring, loses 4 attack speed from hand axes, which isn't scary. They're slow. Path of Radiance Maniac mode also has the Forge glitch. Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the weight thing. I just want to talk about that. But make sure you like and subscribe for more.
Thanks.
Thanks.